Welcome, I'm Dr. Mind. Let's explore together.
You know, we've all been there, staring at our phone, waiting for a reply to a text we sent hours, maybe even days ago. It's this unique kind of modern-day anxiety, right? But what if I told you that a slow reply isn't actually a snub? What if it's the total opposite? What if it's a sign that you're texting a really deep thinker? Let's get into it.
So yeah, you know the feeling. You type out a message, you hit send, you see that little delivered notification pop up,
And then, crickets. Nothing. The hours start to tick by. Maybe it even turns into a day or two, and the waiting game officially begins. And that's when your brain just starts spinning, right? You immediately go back, you reread your message like 10 times. Was that joke weird? Did that come across the wrong way? That little seed of self-doubt starts to grow.
and all that doubt usually leads right to this one very common fear. They're ignoring you. On purpose. And let's be honest, that just feels frustrating and, frankly, a little hurtful.
But hang on. Let's pause for a second. What if we're looking at this whole thing completely backward? What if that long, agonizing pause has absolutely nothing to do with you, or your message, or your relationship with that person? What if it's actually about them?
So let's try to reframe this waiting game. This isn't necessarily about someone being rude. It might just be about a mind that processes communication in a totally different way. You see, this whole pattern, being slow to reply, sometimes even avoiding texting completely, it's actually super common among really thoughtful, intelligent people. And no, it's not because they don't care. Not at all. It's often just a side effect of a brain that is literally wired to analyze things, to consider all the nuances, and to be precise. All right, so let's dig into the first big reason why this happens. And it really all starts with the fact that texting itself is kind of a flawed way to communicate. Just think about it for a second. When we talk to someone face-to-face, we're getting so much information, right? We have their tone of voice, their facial expressions, their body language. All these little cues give our words meaning. Well, texting just rips all of that away. You're left with just the bare words on a screen, and that is where all the trouble starts. Let's take this classic, this incredibly common one-word reply. I mean, on the surface, it seems so simple, but without any of that human context, what does it really mean? I mean, seriously, this could be anything from, yup, got it, I agree, to a really passive-aggressive, fine, whatever. For an analytical mind, a message like this isn't a simple response. No, it's a puzzle. It's a mystery they have to decode. And it can send them down this mental rabbit hole trying to figure out what you really meant. And honestly, that just sounds exhausting. Okay, on to the second major factor here. This one is all about protecting the one thing a deep thinker values more than almost anything else. Their focus. You know, real quality thinking, whether you're trying to solve a tricky problem or create something new or even just process your own thoughts, it requires these long, quiet stretches of uninterrupted focus. But our whole world of instant messaging, it is literally built on the complete opposite of that. It's built on constant, attention-shattering interruptions. Every single buzz, every little ping from your phone, it's a tiny break in your concentration. It's like you're trying to get lost in a really, really good book, but someone is standing behind you just tapping you on the shoulder every 30 seconds. It's not just annoying, it makes it impossible to get into that state of flow.
And this isn't just a feeling, by the way. Cognitive psychology actually shows that when our brains are forced to switch tasks over and over again, our ability to think clearly and deeply really starts to suffer. So for someone who thrives on that deep focus, ignoring a text isn't them being rude. It's basically mental self-defense.
And that brings us to reason number 3. This one's about the actual content of the conversation and a big preference for quality over quantity.
Look, texting is fantastic for quick check-ins and making plans, but thoughtful people often just crave more. They get their energy from conversations about big ideas, about different ways of seeing the world, about interesting topics. You know, the kinds of talks that leave you feeling like you really learned something. And those just don't happen very often in quick back-and-forth texts.
And come on, have you ever tried to explain something really complicated over text? It's a total nightmare, right? It turns into these massive paragraphs and constant misunderstandings. A simple conversation that would take 5 minutes on the phone can turn into this confusing, hour-long text chain. Thoughtful people see that, and they'd often just rather wait for a better time and a better way to talk.
So when you start putting all these pieces together, a completely different picture of the slow texter begins to emerge. You see, it's not about speed at all. It's about their process.
Instead of just firing off an instant reaction, their brain goes through this very deliberate series of steps. First, they read your message, and then they actually pause to let it sink in. Then they analyze what you're really trying to say. After that, they think about the nuances of the topic. And only then, after all of that, do they start to put together a reply that they feel is accurate and thoughtful. That whole process just doesn't work with the pressure for an instant reply.
So in the end, responding slowly or limiting texts, it's really not about avoiding people. It's a defense mechanism. It's all about protecting that quiet internal headspace where creativity and reflection and real ideas have a chance to grow. Which really brings us to the big takeaway here. The next time you send a text and you're left on read, just take a breath. Instead of jumping to the conclusion that they're mad at you or ignoring you, maybe just consider that they're giving your message the thoughtful consideration that you and it deserve.
Because when you really boil it all down, this is the truth. Our culture has gotten obsessed with the speed of our connections, but real, true communication has never been about how fast we can type. It has always been about understanding.
So, I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if that silence, that pause you're waiting through, what if it's not a sign of rejection at all? What if instead it's actually the ultimate sign of respect? The quiet sound of someone actually taking the time to think about what you had to say.